Dr. Koch, North Rhine-Westphalia is maybe the most important energy region in Europe, and energy transition is not new to you. You have that since 70 years, you can really say. From coal to hydrogen is quite a long way, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. So we are, I think, one of the most important coal and steel regions in Europe. We have had this for more than 100 years, and the last coal mine closed at December 2018. So very early, the government had to think about how to manage the industry transition in general, not only the energy transition, but the industry transition from steel mining to modern technologies.
So for this industry transition, as well as for energy transition, you have implemented the EnergieAgentur in North Rhine-Westphalia. What exactly are they doing?
Well, the Energy Agency in total, it was established in 1996 already. And the original target of the Energy Agency is to bring new technologies to North Rhine-Westphalia, to convince companies, being in the machinery sector, electrical engineering, to deal with renewable energies, invent the technologies, make them market ready, and sell them at the very end. And the whole thing has been very successful. So not only because of our work, but in general, one can say that North Rhine-Westphalia has already received some 60,000 jobs in renewable energy. So the transition is working, one can say.
So the Energy Agency consists of 10 different networks, energy agent networks. One of them is the fuel cell and hydrogen electromobility network. What exactly are you doing there?
Well, we were set into operation in the year 2000 when the government saw that obviously a new technology is coming up which sounded very promising at that time, and of course still sounds very promising. And they said, okay, we were very successful with wind energy and photovoltaics. Now we start with fuel cell. And so we launched our network, and now we are almost 500 members from all over the world who do that.
Dr. Koch, I know this community, the hydrogen community and fuel cell community, knows we need battery electric vehicles, of course. The future mobility will consist of battery electric vehicles as well as of hydrogen vehicles. But I think on the other side of the road, it is quite different, you know. You have to convince the battery electric vehicle guys that we really need hydrogen. That could be a problem for your work because you cover both, don't you?
Yes, well, you must have, of course, a very long breath to convince people. And there have been a number of up and downs over the last 20 years. So in 2000, people were extremely optimistic about fuel cells, and there were some drawbacks in technology. 5 years ago, battery popped up, and then, of course, then everyone thought, okay, that was the story with hydrogen and fuel cells. No one will talk about that anymore. But we see a renaissance of hydrogen technologies because people observe that not everything can be done with batteries. Nevertheless, it's quite clear that batteries are an option for vehicles, and this is why the government decided we have to put that under one roof in order to avoid the permanent discussion what is electric mobility. And they have realized that there are two pillars, battery and fuel cell, that are not enemies, but that there are allies who have to work together.
I'm on the stage the 25th time already, so 25 years, and we've heard so many announcements about hydrogen and fuel cells. We will fly from Munich to Hanover in 2000, we've heard, or we will have 1 million fuel cell cars by 2010 and something like that. This did us some harm, didn't it?
Yes. I think that was the biggest mistake that we made in the whole sector, that we made too many promises at a too early stage of time. So people had expectations, they were disappointed by industry, and then at the end everyone thought, okay, it's a technology that will come in 10 years, but every year in 10 years. And I think it's the industry has made the mistake to raise this expectation. I think now, today, we are at the point where we could make a breakthrough if we would see the applications. From the network's perspective, this is our biggest challenge that we have. We have convinced a huge number of potential users of fuel cells, and everyone is waiting for the cars, especially for the cars.
But what do you tell your colleagues from the battery electric side if they say, well, hydrogen is just a loss of efficiency? What can you tell them then?
Yes, this is something we have to admit, but on the other hand, we see that this cannot be the argument that would make hydrogen or fuel cell technology impossible. We see that there are a number of applications where the efficiency plays no role. Of course, in general, efficiency always plays a role when it comes to energy demand in total, but there are applications which a battery can never fulfill. This is especially about heavy duty. This is driving on long ranges and things like that. And even if you talk with the battery people in a room, on a private base, they tell you,
not openly.
We have to admit that, in fact, that not everything can be done with batteries. Yeah.
Maybe typical German to have one solution for all, yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Koch, you mentioned you're almost 500 members. You have 120 project partners from industry and science involved in cooperation projects. You can't mention them all, but just mention a few, please.
Well, what I would like to say is at that point that we have a history of projects. So when we started in 2000, as I said, it was the aim to convince industry to take a look of a new technology which could be promising for the products. So the first project that we saw were mainly in the balance of plants, where especially small and medium-sized enterprises tried to adopt their technology, be it a blower, an inverter, filters, etc., for the needs of hydrogen. That was very successful. And then these were the first projects, and then coming more and more to the future, we saw that the number of real applications played a major role then. And since 2 or 3 years, we see a significant rise in power-to-gas projects, which is, of course, a new topic in the hydrogen society.
And this evolvement of projects also mirrors in the expert groups you have implemented,
yes.
don't you? So you have different expert groups like H2 Systems, Power to Gas, Market Launch, Hydrogen for Public Transport, and so on.
Yeah. These are the actual working groups because they reflect very well the things that we are currently talking about. So I'm especially in charge of hydrogen for public transport. I'm also coordinating the German fuel cell bus cluster. But at the end, as I said, we had also a working group of balance of plant and the stack design, marketing aspects. So we are very open to launch new expert groups depending on the request we get from the members of the network.
And these expert groups are not counselors, but they should stick together and do projects together. So you're rather like a marriage broker.
Yes,
then, yes?
This is the most important instrument for networking, the expert groups, because we meet at the companies, at our members, so all the other members of the group can see what is my colleague doing there, and there they get a basis of confidence to each other, which is extremely important to launch development projects. And this has been a real success story. As you said, we have more than 100 projects over the last 20 years in that fuel cell sector.
Dr. Koch, especially the sector integration or sector coupling is discussed very widely. Hydrogen can play a major role. What does North Rhine-Westphalia do concerning Power-to-X?
Well, you know, North Rhine-Westphalia is an industry state. So first of all, we have huge amounts of the so-called gray hydrogen coming from the chemical industry. And we also have a hydrogen pipeline in our state, which was constructed in the 1930s, so it's almost 90 years old. It's a well-established technology connecting chemical sites. So it goes from Castrop in the east down to Bayer Leverkusen, and it connects producers and consumers of hydrogen. With regard to Power-to-X projects, we have a quite a strong area in the Münsterland where they have lots of wind turbines, where they will launch wind to hydrogen projects, but we also have electrolyzer projects, for example, at the refinery in Wesseling, where they will use hydrogen coming from electrolyzer to put it into the refinery.
Mr. Koch, there is so much industry in North Rhine-Westphalia, as you mentioned, and most of the industry needs hydrogen, tons of hydrogen. Yeah. So there would be enough applications for any hydrogen produced there. Yeah. So there's no limit, actually, but you need the energy there.
Yeah, this is exactly the issue. So currently we can rely on the grid And to be honest, we don't have the overcapacity in renewable energies at this point of time that we could supply all the hydrogen that is potentially being absorbed. One can really say absorbed by the chemical industry. So a refinery is happy about every molecule of hydrogen it can get. Yeah. And if they can use green hydrogen, it's good for the CO2 balance in the whole refinery. So on the other hand, this chemical industry is also necessary to start electrolyzer project. And the electrolyzer project makes no sense when you have no use for the hydrogen. Just putting it into a natural gas pipeline, I think this is, I don't know the English term, it's like verklappen. I don't know. What, yeah?
Like, yeah, using it as rubbish.
Yeah, you get more or less rid of the hydrogen because you don't know what to do reasonably.
It's downgrading, you can say, yes.
Downgrading, yeah,
Downgrading,
definitely.
right.
But on the other hand, for the electrolyzer manufacturer, and for all those who want to get experience with this, it's absolutely interesting to have the refiner or the chemical industry in general on board as a consumer and someone who is willing to pay for the hydrogen too.
But the industry doesn't pay as much as the mobility would do it.
No, definitely. The best business case is mobility, but with the lack of cars, we have to do one thing after the other.
Dr. Koch, there's one thing I like very much about your activities in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the school competition fuel cell box. Yeah. As far as I know, you're the only country in Germany who has such a competition, pupil competition. Will you go on with that one? You already do that since more than 10 years, don't you?
Yeah, we actually do it for 13 years now. 13 years, yeah. And this scholar competition, which we call Fuel Cell Box NRW, addresses the classes 9 to 11. Courses in chemistry, physics, or whatever, or geography, for instance. And the idea is that you have to solve a problem first theoretically, be it, for example, a hydrogen ship, forklifts, stationary applications like residential area. This year we have a cable car which is supplied with a fuel cell. And and then we get applications, 120 classes apply for this competition, and the best 20 get the so-called fuel cell box. And in this fuel cell box, which has been supported by HTEC in the past and GP Joule in the last years. This box contains all the equipment that you need for the practical solution. And at the end...
Not just a theoretical work, it's a practical work. They can really see it works, you know, with fuel cells.
They can test everything they have calculated. For instance, if their working business model really fits. And at the end, the best 5 teams come in the final competition where they have to prove what they have constructed there. For example, in that case of the residential energy supply, we simulated a day, with wind and sunlight, and then no wind and no sunlight at night, and you had to supply energy all the time. So during the daytime, you had to produce hydrogen with photovoltaics or with your wind turbine, store the energy and use it during nighttime. And all those who had a wrong operating scheme had to take energy from the grid, which was counted. And the one who had the lowest amount taken from the grid was the winner.
Right. It was big fun. I've experienced it.
Extremely successful.
It was big fun. But what is the idea behind it? Do you do this for public awareness for young people, or what is the idea?
Well, we want to convince people, pupils especially, that the whole world does not only consist of business administration, but also engineering and natural sciences. And when we started, fuel cells were no topic at the curriculum at the North Rhine-Westphalian schools. And with our work, I think that was integrated into the scheme and the curriculum of North Rhine-Westphalian schools, and now it's part of all those things in physics and chemistry. And people are very enthusiastic about that thing, and we know that some winners now already work in the fuel cell business.
Do they? Yes, that's good. So it's like a, a recruiting idea also behind it, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think we do much too little for this public awareness and for recruiting for this industry. We have to do much more. We all know about hydrogen and fuel cells, more or less, and we are convinced, you know, but just step 50 meters outside this hall and nobody knows anymore. Oh yeah, I've heard hydrogen, I don't know what it means, and sector coupling, never heard of. So we have a lot of things to do, and it's a complicated material, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It sounds very complicated, and when you see statements in the internet, when, for example, there was an article about the fuel cell development, and you see all the readers' comments, you know that people have no idea what hydrogen really is. You can read all the prejudices people have about diffusion of hydrogen through the tanks, the explosiveness, the low efficiency, and then
it's a lot of work to do still.
Yeah, I make my own comment there, but what I also do, I make talks, for example, on citizen forums like Volkshochschule or something like that, where we offer a lesson, more or less, to everyone who is interested in this topic, and this is a quite successful thing. And I hope I find new multipliers that also answered in internet forums afterwards. They have listened to my speech there.
Okay. Dr. Koch, you have also in North Rhine-Westphalia very active networks, like in the region of Cologne, you have High Cologne, you have in Herten, you have H2 Network Ruhr. They are working at a local level. How does the collaboration with these networks work?
We have extremely good cooperation with these local networks. You are completely right. They take care of their local stakeholders, the local industry, local companies like the industrial chambers, for example, while we have to take care about whole North Rhine-Westphalia. But when it comes to project initiation, they ask us, do you have other partners in North Rhine-Westphalia which are necessary for our ideas? And then we bring the partners together. But I think High Cologne and Hydrogen Network Ruhr are making a very good job.
I would like to open the discussion to you. If you have any question, just raise your hand. I'll be with the microphone right with you. Dr. Koch, there's one region especially active in North Rhine-Westphalia. I would say it's Cologne. Just ordered 30 fuel cell buses, and Wuppertal said, okay, if you order 30, we order 10 more. So very active. How could you convince Cologne to buy so many fuel cell buses?
Yeah, this, for example, was a success of the High Cologne network. High Cologne network started because there they have a huge amounts of byproducts available coming from the chlorine industry. So hydrogen is a byproduct there which was vented into the air or simply burned. So a real waste of hydrogen. And in 2008 we made a study about the byproduct capacity, and it's really mainly around Cologne, where we found out that the byproduct capacity of hydrogen is sufficient to supply 6,000 buses or 300,000 passenger cars per year.
Oh my God.
Without making any extra hydrogen. And therefore, they talked with the chemical plant, it's Vinolith, and asked, can we have some of your hydrogen? And then they constructed a hydrogen station directly at the chemical site. Of course, not on the same side, it's on the fence and the public side. And there they get the hydrogen at a very low price. It's €3.80 per kilogram. Compare that with the 9.50 at the public stations. Yeah. And they run their buses even cheaper compared to diesel. So it's already a business case for the regional transport agency in Cologne.
But those guys from Wuppertal couldn't come to Cologne every time they need a refill.
Yeah,
what will they do?
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense, because when they return to Wuppertal, the bus is almost half empty. So they want to produce the hydrogen on their own. This is the typical construction we have in Germany, that a Stadtwerk consists of two pillars, the energy pillar and the public transport pillar. And the energy pillar is owning a waste incineration plant, which has to supply heat to a residential area and to a swimming pool. But they produce electricity in parallel, which very often cannot be sold at reasonable prices to the energy stock exchange in Leipzig. So they decided, let's make a valuable product out of that, and then they make the hydrogen, and their transport system in the Stadtwerke now comes along with hydrogen buses, refills them at the site of the waste incineration plant, and the Abfallwirtschaftsbetriebe Wuppertal, they will buy garbage collectors based on hydrogen, on the fuels that operate it, and they will also refill their trucks there. So
Hydrogen from waste, this could be a good export idea to give the idea to other countries in Germany.
yes, definitely. So this is what we call it the Wuppertal model, and it finds a lot of friends in other Stadtwerke. So in East Germany, in other cities, of course, in North Rhine-Westphalia. So everyone is looking at Wuppertal and think that could be a model for my city too.
There's another model in the north of North Rhine-Westphalia, in Steinfurt,
Yeah.
where they had never something to do with hydrogen,
No.
but they have these wind power plants who run out of funding from EEG.
Right.
And they thought, well, what can we do with this energy? It's still worthy. So they found hydrogen then.
Yes, exactly. This is a region where it seems to me very, very much like in Schleswig-Holstein, where every farmer seems to have his own windmill. So they profited very much from the EEG funding, but as you said, they will run out of it. So they decided, okay, let's make hydrogen out of it and sell it maybe to the Ruhr area. So the Münsterland could become the green hydrogen supplier for the Ruhr.
So many success stories in North Rhine-Westphalia. If you visit North Rhine-Westphalia, or our exhibitors from North Rhine-Westphalia, it's just next to the public forum over there. You will find Dr. Koch there also today, tomorrow, and Friday. Hopefully you will be there. Talk to him. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. And Dr. Koch, thank you for this interesting talk.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.